Welcome to Defense Briefing. The content of the briefing includes Whaley's 15-point spark UNLV past Air Force, 72-43. Putin looms over a third successive U.S. election. Desperate for soldiers, Ukraine weighs unpopular plan to expand the draft. As Ukraine marks 2 years since Russia's invasion, Europe is facing difficult questions. Air Force, Ukraine downs 8 drones overnight. Whaley's 15-point spark UNLV past Air Force, 72-43. Associated Press. UNLV defeated the Air Force Academy 72-43 in a Mountain West Conference game. Rob Whaley Jr. led UNLV with 15 points and 7 rebounds, while Ethan Taylor scored 17 points for Air Force. UNLV will next face number 22 Colorado State, while Air Force will play New Mexico. Putin looms over a third successive U.S. election. CNN. Russia's President Putin has been accused of sparking chaos in an effort to discredit and weaken the U.S. Putin has successfully leveraged power in U.S. politics, causing a potential schism between the U.S. and European NATO allies. The Russian leader's efforts have led to a proxy war with Ukraine and caused tensions with the U.S. to escalate. Putin has used Russia's espionage agencies to inject propaganda and discord into U.S. politics through social media and more directly by intelligence agencies. Desperate for soldiers, Ukraine weighs unpopular plan to expand the draft. Associated Press. As the war in Ukraine enters its third year and Russia controls roughly 1/4 of the country, the Ukrainian government is struggling to find enough new soldiers to repel the Russian forces. Many men are evading the draft by hiding at home or attempting to bribe their way out of battle. The lack of soldiers is a pressing issue for Ukraine, as their army is too small and made up of too many exhausted and wounded soldiers. With Russia having a population more than 3 times larger than Ukraine, it has the advantage of having more fighters at its disposal. The lack of soldiers is not the only issue Ukraine is facing, it is also desperate for Western military aid, although this has been harder to come by as the war drags on. To replenish its ranks, Ukraine is trying to find a balance between coercion and persuasion, with the parliament considering legislation to increase the potential pool of recruits by about 400,000. However, this proposal is highly unpopular, forcing elected officials to grapple with difficult questions relating to national sacrifice. Many Ukrainian men are estimated to be evading the draft, either at home or abroad. Soldiers on the front line are not getting enough rest, and when there are new recruits, they are often too few, too poorly trained, and too old. Commanders say they don't have enough soldiers to launch offensives and barely enough to hold positions. The lack of soldiers is making the Ukrainian army more susceptible to injury and less effective in battle. Ukraine's parliament is considering legislation to draft more men, but the proposal is being met with resistance and criticism. The military has not adequately explained how an increase in conscription will change the outcome of the war. The legislation is also facing criticism for being unconstitutional and not addressing the issue of draft dodging. There are concerns that the legislation will disproportionately target poor, rural areas and that it will not be effective in recruiting enough soldiers. Many men are evading the draft by bribing their way out or making deals to be placed at a safe distance from the fighting. The Ukrainian government is also facing the challenge of convincing citizens to sacrifice their lives for the nation. The legislation under consideration would require draft-eligible citizens to check in with the government via an electronic tracking system. This system could also help address the disparity in recruitment patrols targeting poor, rural areas. However, there are concerns that the system will not be effective in preventing draft dodging and that it will disproportionately target certain regions. The Ukrainian government is facing a difficult dilemma as it tries to address the lack of soldiers and the need for Western military aid. The war in Ukraine has already taken a heavy toll on the country, and the lack of soldiers is making it more difficult for Ukraine to defend itself against Russian aggression. As Ukraine marks 2 years since Russia's invasion, Europe is facing difficult questions. CNN. Europe must consider how long it can continue to financially support Ukraine as the conflict in the country continues to drag on, according to CNN. The war in Ukraine has been deadlocked for some time and Ukraine recently suffered a major defeat when it was forced to withdraw from the key town of Avdiivka. The European Union, EU, and its regional allies have spent over $100 billion on Ukraine's defense efforts since the start of the crisis, with EU leaders agreeing earlier this month to a $54 billion package for Ukraine between 2017 and 2027. However, fatigue is setting in as the conflict continues and costs rise. European officials are concerned that the political pressure on spending will increase as European parliamentary elections and national elections in some countries draw closer. Moreover, the prospect of Donald Trump returning to the White House could have a negative impact on Ukraine. Trump has not been clear about his policy towards Ukraine. However, if he were to decide that the US had already spent enough, Ukraine could lose momentum on the ground. Consequently, it is crucial that Europe continues to support Ukraine, regardless of what happens in America. Air Force, Ukraine downs 8 drones overnight. Yahoo! Ukrainian air defense units have reportedly destroyed 8 of the 10 Shahid drones that Russia launched overnight. The drones were launched from Primorsko-Akhtarsk in Russia, and one Kh-31P supersonic anti-radiation missile was launched from the Black Sea. The weapons were intercepted over Poltava, Dnipropetrovsk, Kharkiv, and Zaporizhia oblasts. No casualties or damages to civilian infrastructure were reported. This comes after Ukraine's air defense downed 13 drones and 1 Russian missile the night before. South Carolina's Republican primary, what to watch as Haley tries to upset Trump in her home state. Associated Press. Nikki Haley is looking to do well enough in the South Carolina Republican primary on Saturday to make the March 5 Super Tuesday slate somewhat competitive against Donald Trump. Trump has so far won big in Iowa, New Hampshire and Nevada, and is now looking to complete an early state sweep. Haley, who was twice elected South Carolina governor and then served as Trump's UN ambassador, has a chance to narrow the margin and dampen Trump's momentum. South Carolina has no party registration, and Republicans hold an open primary. That means the only voters who are not eligible Saturday are the 126,000 or so who cast Democratic primary ballots on February 3. That's significantly less than the 500,000 plus who voted Democratic in 2020, meaning plenty of anti-Trump votes are theoretically available to Haley. Holy Cross knocks off Bucknell 73-59. Associated Press. Holy Cross defeated Bucknell with a final score of 73-59. Caleb Kenny led the Crusaders with 25 points and 11 rebounds, while Bo Montgomery contributed 23 points, 12 rebounds, and 7 assists. Jack Forrest scored 16 points for the Bison, followed by Elvin Edmonds with 12 points. Holy Cross will face Navy next, while Bucknell will host Army. Japan-based U.S. Navy sailor accused of espionage. BBC. A U.S. Navy sailor based in Japan has been charged with espionage for allegedly passing classified information to a foreign government. Bryce Pedicini is accused of giving documents to foreign agents on at least 7 occasions in 2022 and 2023. He is also accused of attempting to hand over photographs of a military computer screen. Pedicini, a chief petty officer fire control man, has been in custody since May 2023. The incidents allegedly occurred in Hampton Roads, Virginia, and Japan. The exact country and contents of the documents have not been disclosed. Pedicini faces a court-martial while the investigation continues. Robert Port, who led AP investigative team that won Pulitzer for No Gun Re-Massacre Probe, dies. Associated Press. Robert Port, who led the Associated Press investigative team to win a Pulitzer Prize for its reporting on the Korean War No Gun Re-Massacre, has died aged 68. Port, who was diagnosed with cancer more than 7 years ago, led the Pulitzer Prize-winning No Gun Re-reporting, which exposed a mass killing of civilians by U.S. troops during the Korean War. Benini scores 27 and Navy wins 69-62 against Loyola Maryland. Associated Press. Navy defeated Loyola Maryland with a score of 69-62, ending their 8-game losing streak. Austin Benini led the midshipmen with 27 points and 5 rebounds, while Donovan Draper contributed 14 points and 12 rebounds. Loyola Maryland's Alonso Four scored 15 points and had 6 rebounds, while Dion Perry added 11 points. Hey there, folks! It's your friendly neighborhood 6 doctor, coming to you from the 6th dimension. I hope you're all doing well and ready for some news updates. Let's dive right in. First up, UNLV had a big win against Air Force in a Mountain West Conference game. Rob Whaley Jr. led the charge with 15 points and 7 rebounds. Good job, Rob. Now, let's talk about everyone's favorite topic, Putin. He's been accused of causing chaos to weaken the US and create a divide between the US and its European NATO allies. His efforts have led to a proxy war with Ukraine, and tensions with the US are on the rise. Putin has been using espionage agencies to spread propaganda and discord in the US political landscape. Sneaky, sneaky. Speaking of Ukraine, they're facing a shortage of soldiers as the war with Russia continues. Many men are evading the draft, and the Ukrainian government is desperate for more fighters. They're considering expanding the draft to recruit more soldiers, but it's not a popular move. It's a tough situation for Ukraine, and they're also in need of Western military aid. Let's hope they find a solution soon. Europe is also facing a dilemma when it comes to supporting Ukraine financially. The conflict has been dragging on, and the costs are rising. European officials are worried about the pressure to spend as elections draw closer and the uncertainty surrounding Donald Trump's policy towards Ukraine. It's important for Europe to continue supporting Ukraine, regardless of what happens in America. Ukraine seems to be putting up a fight, though. They reportedly shot down 8 out of 10 drones launched by Russia. Good job, Ukrainian air defense units. Moving on to the South Carolina Republican primary, Nikki Haley is hoping to do well and challenge Donald Trump. She has the chance to narrow the margin and slow down Trump's momentum. South Carolina has an open primary, so there are plenty of anti-Trump votes up for grabs. Let's see how this plays out. In other news, a U.S. Navy sailor based in Japan has been charged with espionage. Bryce Pedicini is accused of passing classified information to a foreign government. He's in custody and is facing a court-martial. Not a good situation for him. We also have sad news to share. J. Robert Port, who led the AP investigative team that won a Pulitzer Prize for their reporting on the No Gun Run massacre during the Korean War, has passed away. Our thoughts are with his family and loved ones. And finally, some sports news. Holy Cross beat Bucknell in a basketball game, and Caleb Kenny led the Crusaders with an impressive 25 points and 11 rebounds. Navy also had a win against Loyola Maryland, with Austin Benini scoring 27 points. Great job, guys. That's all for today, folks. Remember, these news updates are just a snapshot of what's happening in the world. If you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to share them. What are your thoughts on the ongoing conflict in Ukraine? Let's hear from you. Stay curious and keep exploring, my friends. Until next time, and thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.